So you're going to talk about your teaching, when you started with the writing project, how the writing project impacted on your teaching since that experience you had,
Okay.
and how that came into your classroom, how that is a living, breathing thing with you,
Yeah.
and how you work in your classroom.
Okay. So I started teaching in January of 2002 at the school I teach in now. I you might need to remind me of all the little parts you want me to say.
Yeah, that's right. I'll
I
cut around myself.
Okay, okay. I started the writing project last summer. It was my first year, and I guess I got involved because... How did I get involved? I went to a sample workshop done by Joseph and Corey, and it was it was Corey's workshop using a painting to write a memoir. And I am in love with using art in my classroom, so I was hooked automatically. And then I just kept corresponding with Joseph and started that way. And now, being a product of the writing project, I feel more comfortable as a writer myself, which obviously allows me to teach writing more confidently and more in depth. I definitely have used even just little management strategies from the writing project that we've all shared together. Like, for example, Pam uses the bells to start every morning with writing. I bought myself some bells. We do morning pages every day. And that has increased their ability to write, I mean, so much more far than I have in any other year. And I'm able to now integrate a lot more things content-wise into their writing. So for morning pages, just like Pam would do for pulling excerpts out of novels or having it pertain to something we had done the day before, that's what they do for their morning pages in my classroom. We do it either related to social studies content or even reading content with genre. And I feel like my students, with this craziness with test preparation and getting ready for the MSA, they were more ready this year, I think, because of writing than any other, I think really, because of any other year. It's my 4th year teaching 3rd grade, before I taught 2nd grade. And I think I had a hard time before figuring out, like I was saying earlier, how to incorporate the curriculum, the test preparation, and good teaching all together in a way that was fun for me, fun for the kids, and made me feel like I was doing something positive in the classroom and fulfilled. And even with something as simple as morning pages, they knew genre like nobody's business. They were able to figure out the genre they wanted to write, the purpose of what they wanted to write, how to integrate content into their writing, because they practice it every single day. So when they came to the test and there were questions about genre and purpose and organization, they had firsthand experience, not just how do I answer a question about text organization. They had done it every single day the entire school year. So that was one huge part of the writing project that I took away and used in my classroom daily. And even just my own TIW that I did over the summer, I just taught it a couple of weeks ago, came to that time. And the things that I thought about over the summer to incorporate, like, my TIW was about fairy tale writing. And we had bags, choice bags, for the different elements of a fairy tale. And it was interesting the way I got to see how I did it last year, how I changed it over the summer, and then how I used that for this year, and how much more they were able to expand their ideas. And even with little things that were suggested to me by my peers at the writing project, by making my TIW, I used that when I taught it this year. I took pictures actually to show everybody, because it turned out to be so much more than just here's fairy tale writing. It was a whole experience, and we integrated different content into it, and they wore different hats to be the hero and to represent the setting, and that was something I came up with during the writing project over the summer that was different from the previous year. and even just incorporating different visuals for ESOL students, and I teach an inclusion class with special education students. Putting all that together, I was able over the summer to really deeply break apart why I did every single thing in that writing experience, and then piece it back together in my real life setting in the classroom and make it work even better than I did before. And now with the digital element, that was something I didn't even know I could do. When we started last summer, and one of our options was a digital story, I was freaking out. I didn't know how to use iMovie. I didn't know how to put...
Who's doing that?
Upstairs. Nina and Rosemary. I don't know. Rosemary? Rosemary?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
It's taping though. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
It's okay, guys.
We know how to edit. Well, now we do. When I was doing this in the writing project over the summer, I had no idea how to create a digital story. I didn't know how to use iMovie. I didn't know how to do any of it. And Joseph would come sit next to me, and I would tell him that I was not doing a digital story anymore. I couldn't figure it out. And then one day it just all clicked together. All the pieces came together, and it just happened, and I did it, and it came out really well. So now I'm using that in my classroom in different ways. I'm using Glogster with my students to teach. We did that with text features in the beginning of the year, and I thought it was really, really good for my special education students because it was a less intimidating way for them to share their ideas. They didn't have to sit and, normally in the curriculum they chart everything. So in the curriculum it had a text feature, a description of it, and how it was helpful to them. When they did Glogster, they picked out text features that they felt were pertinent to the topic they chose and were able to just put it out there and verbally explain, I want a picture of this turtle because my audience needs to see what a turtle looks like. And this caption describes what kind of turtle it is. So they were able to really get into the process of picking and creating text features in a way that was different than the paper and pencil, finding them in a text or, drawing them themselves. And they all use a computer. So I felt like the audience was a little bit more authentic for them. And I gave them directions to access at home. So they all made their Glogster pages, accessed it at home, and could even
So most of your
home.
students have computers at home?
No, they don't. But they go to the library to use it. And the ones that do have it at home, there's, I would say half and half have it at home. And the ones that do are still even asking me to reprint directions for them to use Glogster more.
So your story is very, very specific in terms of the particular projects you did and how you were impacted by the writing project. So it would be great to intersperse your photos that you already have because you've already described it. So all that's going to be really helpful. Screenshots of your Glogster would be great if you sent it to me.
Okay.
So, and now you're working on a new project, and you're working on it with Thor. So tell me about that one.
Okay. The project that we were working on together started with both of us being really interested in integrating environmental concerns and community research with digital media and the students' writing process. So I started an after-school club called Helping Hands last year. We meet once a week for about an hour and a half or so. And I thought it would be a really authentic way to integrate the environment and the digital in their storytelling by using the stream cleanup that we do each year. So we kind of did a test run with the Helping Hands kids and had them go out and get footage of this incredibly dirty, littered stream and the banks around it, come back, formulate research questions, do some research. Our idea was to create public service announcements. The kids actually turned it into more of like a newsreel. Then take the footage of them cleaning and then show their own interviews with each other afterward to talk about how the whole process went. And originally we thought that they would physically make these iMovies. That was a little harder than I expected, just because we had very specific time constraints, and just even teaching them how to use a Mac mouse pad, moving the mouse with their finger was mind-blowing. So I put their digital pieces together, but they actually created the footage, the scripts, all the other stuff they did. I just kind of produced it for them. So Thor and I, taking the issue of actually making the piece of media themselves, are moving into more of a workshop about how we can teach teachers in a more simplified process how to have their students make digital stories with the community and the environment as the basis of their ideas. So we're going to start with stills and have the teachers pick a topic and use stills as their medium, and go through the research process, the script writing process, make it more of claim-based research. Like they state their claim and they need to support it with evidence, and have it turn into more of a public service announcement. And then from there, we're thinking this would be a 3-part workshop, starting with consuming, seeing all different examples, creating anchor charts with the craft pieces, as well as what really makes a good persuasive piece with a claim and the supporting evidence and a lead and all those elements, moving into picking a topic and seeing how to research, and giving them actual time to research these topics like we would with the students. The way I did it with my class during the year when we did PSAs was different stations. They had article station, a computer station, a text feature station. So giving the teachers time to do that and maybe think about how they would implement that in their classroom. And then instead of just having them go ahead and create a digital piece, which we both found difficult when we first started to make a digital piece, is to almost like you would give a student when they're reading or writing a sentence frame, give them a digital frame. So provide more of a scaffold with giving them the pictures and having them fill in where they think it's appropriate, the picture sequence is appropriate, giving them the script in pieces and having them sequence it, put it together, putting it with the pictures, making it that way, and then moving on to making their own. Because we found
that storyboarding.
Basically, yeah. We thought that transition would help them figure out how to teach it to their students a little bit better too. And then once they have it down pat with the still pictures, then the second part of our workshop would be how to incorporate video. And that would be a whole different set of craft elements with different shots and angles and the rolling footage and using a tripod instead of the shaky camera.
B-roll.
Yeah, Thor knows more of those technical terms than I do.
I just learned that like last year, and I've been using it forever.
He knows all of these special names for the shots, but so then we would hope that we could teach them then how to incorporate the video, because what I found when I tried to do that with the students is having them go through all this footage and pick out one piece of 5-second footage that is meaningful and makes sense to their story was really hard. Yeah. They would just click and drag a whole minute and a half of shaky litter footage, and we would sit there and watch it. I was like, this isn't really telling your story the way I think it could. So that's when I decided to move into more of that editorial role and just let them keep giving me all of their footage, their interviews, their everything, and I just pieced it together for them.
It's extremely sophisticated.
Yeah, the thinking is sophisticated.
Yeah, and just being able to be selective is not something they could do.
No. There are a couple of things they pulled out, like funny moments when they actually turned the camera on each other and started talking about the litter or the environment. They knew that was in there, But the majority of their footage was litter. So they had so much litter footage, and a lot of it was the bouncy grass.
Yeah.
It was a little over their head, and especially when we did it. We tried to do it, or I tried to do it with them in 2 weeks, for once a week. It just there was no way.
No, because that's the most time consuming for an adult.
Yeah.
So as time consuming as it would be for you, working with them
Right.
would be.
And even just teaching them how to drag a specific piece and then pull that into your movie. I mean that.
Well, because one of the things iMovie doesn't have, it doesn't have great tools. It used to. In some ways, the old iMovies were better because you could just cut where you wanted and join it back together. Like it automatically could do that for you. But they took that feature out.
See, I don't know how to use Movie Maker or Pinnacle. So for me to teach this, I feel like I need MacBooks or iMovie somehow.
Well, look, it's not to say that people don't. I mean, my friend Kevin has done so much with just Photo Story 3. It's a very, very basic. And when I told him that there's going to be a big update of Final Cut Pro X, and it's going to be $300 instead of like $1,500 or $1,000. He thought $300, and I'm thinking, do you think that's cheap? And he didn't. Like he thought it was extremely expensive. So you could use the basic stuff on PC. You could still use.
I just have to reteach myself how to do that, because in iMovie, everything is color coded. If I drag in a music piece, it's green or whatever it is. If I have the text, it's blue. If I have, it's all color coded. So in my head, it's easier to teach using that, but
it's whatever you have.
Yeah, yeah. So our goal is to test out this workshop with teachers first. Give it in maybe a 3-part session just with using stills. The second 3-part session would be using video footage. And Thor really wants to incorporate this into a summer camp. So we'll see if we could actually do it.
Well, it's definitely something doable that Joseph would probably be able to incorporate into maybe a larger summer project, because that's where summer institutes can make money.
Okay. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And the kids are so excited to do it. Whenever we take out the flip cameras or the computers, it's just that they light the whole room with their excitement.
And it's like what Justin said. Like when people are having fun, they're willing to learn.
Yep. And and people keep talking about the test prep, and even with your piece that you showed us with the school, and they didn't know how they were going to do on tests. There are so many elements that are on the test that you can incorporate with all of this. That, the making of inferences and cause and effect. I mean, there's everything in there.
Right.
You just have to say it out loud and say, this is cause and effect.
Yeah.
And just maybe do a quick little mini lesson using cause and effect. Maybe some kind of format that might look more familiar to them when they're taking a test. But it doesn't need to be straightforward test prep when you have these elements.
Jack is the kind of teacher who's teaching so many things at the same time and knows it. Knows exactly what he's doing. But I think he's in a unique position that his job doesn't rest, his success doesn't rest on his test results.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just don't. Maybe year after year, if he, the kids were doing really bad, like everybody getting 1s and 2s, but I don't think that really happens.
Yeah.
I mean, they screwed all the schools in New York State got screwed, because after the test, after the fact, they changed the scoring. So so 3s were like average below average, and 4 was average. So that meant that if you had a low 3, you failed, which was never existed before. Like they totally skewed the test because they felt it was too easy.
How did they do that?
But it was after the fact. So people got the results and they were all much lower.
Oh my
I know. It's horrible.
That's terrible.
So everybody was bad. How could they not be?
Right.
You just screwed it. And the whole system's stupid to begin with. I remember when we were doing ELA tests in the 8th grade, it's sort of like we were a guinea pig group because one of my assistant superintendents loved to jump on the bandwagon for anything new. So we were doing it before anybody else. And I remember a kid raising his hand, and the piece was about Eleanor Roosevelt. And he came over and he said, Miss Kaplan, is that how you spell Roosevelt? And it was spelled wrong. It was spelled like with 3 O's. And the company who created that test, they paid them a lot of money to create this test and spell Roosevelt wrong?
Right.
I mean, how embarrassing. And I have to say to a kid, oh my God, it is spelled. I mean, what is that kid thinking?
Right.
Like, how am I taking this New York State test?
Mm-hmm.
And he knows, like, if he spelled Eleanor Roosevelt's name wrong, I would kill him.
Yeah.
And here it is on a test.
Yeah. Tests are ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
The anxiety that goes along with the test for the kids is incredible. I literally, for one of my students, he has a little envelope that let me backtrack a little bit. Our county makes up tests.
We don't need this.
Okay.
This is just our private conversation.
Yeah.
Is there anything before we finish? Because your interview is pretty detailed.
Is there anything else you want to know?
No, I think you gave me a lot. I mean, it could be like